is one where you speak closer, right?
Yeah, you have to talk. Make sure you're talking to that microphone so I can hear what you say.
Okay. You give me the old 3, 2, 1, nothing.
You're on now.
Oh, fantastic. Hi. I didn't know.
You gotta speak nice and loud enough.
I'm staring at the microphone like it's the camera. Hi. Good morning, Lauffer and Kindness Club and ELL students were asked to be here. And then we also have 5 students who wrote the most kindness notes this year. Mr. Letson was kind enough to count those up for us yesterday. And so they are able to be in here for a very special presentation from someone that I was very, very lucky to get in contact with through the Community Share program here in Sunnyside. And so our Community Share project that we're working on this year is a Lauffer Peace Pole. And even though Rotary does peace poles that are just 4x4 pieces of wood that are meant to recognize the peace that comes from community, we're doing something a little different here at Lauffer because, we got to do something different since we are a Lauffer. We're going to do more of a sculpture, and each of the students that was invited will have a chance to create a piece of that sculpture that will be installed out in front of our school that will represent peace in general, and peace prevailing on earth through kindness. So we have a very special speaker today. Her name is Jeannette Maré, and she is going to be telling us about the science of kindness.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yes, clapping would be great. Clapping would be super kind. I appreciate it very much. And I'm really excited to have some time with you this morning. We have a decent amount of time that we're going to delve into this idea of kindness, and specifically the science of kindness. Do those words make sense to you together? Science and kindness? Do they? All right. Well, we're going to explore this a little bit because I am a scientist and I study kindness. So it definitely is possible, but I want to explain a little bit about what that means. I love this picture behind me because I think when people think about kindness and when they think about Ben's Bells, they often think about, that's nice for little kids, right? Kindness is good for little kids. Did you all go to kindness schools, to kind campus schools, Ben's Bells schools for elementary? Yeah, you remember this stuff, right? The murals and all the rest. But I love this picture because those big men in the picture are U of A football players. They're University of Arizona football players, and not everybody thinks, kindness and Arizona football players, right? But these guys on the team and a lot of the athletes and plenty of adults work on kindness as well. Kindness is for everybody. It's important for everybody, as we're going to talk about. And so it's important that we realize that we're not just talking about something that's good just for little kids. Super good for little kids and for kids your age and for older kids and for all adults. I am the founder of Ben's Bells, and I'm going to tell you that story in a minute. But I also now work at the University of Arizona, and I lead a research group that works on kindness research. So this is my colleague, Bianca, in this picture. She's not here this morning, but so this is the role that I serve in now. But my story is a sad story, and I want to tell you that right off the bat, because one of the things that we can do for each other that is kind is support each other during hard times, right? During sad times. But also sometimes we don't know exactly how to do that. And if you're anything like me, you probably sometimes don't know what to say or what to do when somebody has a hard time. And so when I tell you my story, just you sitting here with me and listening is a kindness, and I want to thank you very much. So in this picture, this is Ben of Ben's Bells, and Ben is my son, and he died when he was almost 3. And I know some of you already know that story because I probably came to your elementary schools at some point. But you can also imagine, and maybe you all have experienced a loss in your life that was like this, where you felt so much grief, that I felt so much sadness after Ben died that I didn't know how to sort of keep doing my normal life, right? Like how do I go back to the grocery store and how do I go back to work and that sort of thing? But what happened was there were people who were willing to come in close, even though that was painful to be there, right? And they did kind things for me. And they did all kinds of different things, right? Some people brought us food, some people wrote us cards, some people sat and listened. People who sat and listened, that meant so much to me during that time. I felt like I just needed to share and share and share about Ben. And what I started realizing was that kindness was not weak, and kindness was not soft. Have you ever heard kindness talked about like as a soft skill? Have you ever heard that language? I sort of push back on that idea because I don't think it's a soft thing. I actually think kindness is incredibly powerful and incredibly brave and incredibly strong. And certainly those people who surrounded me and my family during that time were brave and strong and courageous and giving and incredible. So that idea that kindness is weak or soft or anything like that, I really push back against that. And I hope you will too after listening all the way through to this. So after Ben died, this kindness was really, really impacting me. Like it sort of blew my mind how much I needed to be taken care of that way. And I'm a very strong, independent person, right? I think sometimes we walk around in the world thinking, I've got to be strong and independent. But what I really needed was people to help me. I really needed it. And people did. And so I really wanted to do something in Ben's memory to acknowledge all of that kindness and to show gratitude for all that kindness and hopefully to encourage more of that kindness. And so I started Ben's Bells. And you all have heard of Ben's Bells. Ben's Bells has been around for 22 years now. And do you remember what Ben's Bells look like? I don't think I have a slide in here, do I? Yes, I do. A slide of what Ben's Bells look like. Have you ever seen one? Has anyone ever found one? No? Yes, I see a couple nodding. I see a hand going up in the back of the room. So Ben's Bells are special because the pieces of them are made by people all over the community. It started in my garage after Ben died. We worked on this in my garage. And on the first anniversary of Ben's death, we hung out 400 of these. And they have a tag on them that says, "You have found a Ben's Bell. Take it home and remember to spread kindness." And we were just going to do it that one time. We were just going to go out on that first anniversary of his death to honor Ben, to show gratitude for the kindness that people showed us. We hung out these bells, and what happened was the people who found bells had stories to tell of their own about why that bell was so important to them. And they had stories about what was going on in their own life, right? And why they also needed kindness. And so we realized we had something special that we needed to keep going. And so 22 years ago, we decided to keep that going. And today, Ben's Bells is this thing that's been around and is not only in Tucson but across the country, and that something that I'm really, really proud of and excited about. But really, Ben's Bells only exists because of community, and you're going to hear that we're going to talk about that a lot. This idea of community, of us working together to make this a kind place. And when I say this, I mean the city that we live in together, right? This community that we live in together, this school that you all go to together. So Liz from Ben's Bells is here. She's back there. I don't work for Ben's Bells anymore. I stepped down 5 years ago to go back to school. Can you imagine at my age going back to school? Well, I did. I went back to school because I was so curious about understanding kindness better, understanding humans better, humans like myself and like all of you, and how we can do kindness better for each other and what kindness does for us when we do that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I now have a PhD, which means I've studied kindness a lot, and I wrote basically a book about kindness, and from the research I did. And so I'm super excited to be able to use what I learned to help keep this conversation going in our community. I always stick this slide in there just to reinforce this idea that when we talk about kindness, we're not just talking about sort of rainbows and butterflies. Like just be nice to each other, just be sweet. Because that's really not what kindness is. So we're going to explore that for just a second, what kindness is. And so this idea, have you ever thought about this idea, the difference between kind and nice? Does anyone think there's a difference between being kind and being nice? Sometimes we use those words interchangeably, right? They could mean the same thing. But can you imagine being nice, but it actually not being kind? Is that possible? I'm going to make you imagine and think a lot this morning. So let me give you an example. Suppose one of your classmates or one of your friends asks you to do something for them, but like take on a project or something. But you really can't take on that project because you're already way too busy. But you say yes anyway, just because you want to please them. What will happen in that situation? Will you do a great job on that project? Probably not. I see a lot of you shaking your head. Probably not, because you're overwhelmed already. You have too much going on. Are you going to be stressed out more yourself? Yes, right? You might even resent your friend for asking you, right? So that was nice to say yes, but not necessarily kind. Does that make sense? Kindness might be saying something like, I really want to help you, but I have so much going on. Let me help you brainstorm another way to get some help, right? So kindness and niceness are not the same things. Niceness never wants to be uncomfortable, whereas kindness is willing to have a hard conversation, right? Niceness, do you know that idea of sweeping a problem under the rug? What does that mean, to sweep a problem under the rug? Means like pretend it's not there, right? You take a problem and you sweep it under the rug. It means you're going to pretend that problem isn't there. What happens to that problem? Does it go away? No, it does not. You're absolutely right. It doesn't go away. So it might be nice to sort of sweep a problem under the rug, pretend it's not there, but it's not kind. Kindness is going to be willing to have that conversation, figure out that problem, do some problem solving together. So keep this idea of kind and nice separate. All right, so now I want you to think about a kindness that you experienced recently. Okay, is it hard to think of that? Or does something pop right to your mind? I want you to notice in this, I have the word experienced, a kindness that you experienced. How can you experience kindness? You could do a kindness for somebody else, right? So you could be the person who gives a kindness. You could also be a person who receives a kindness, right? You could also see kindness happening over here. You're not even part of it, but you see somebody else doing something kind for somebody else. Or you can even hear about kindness, like on a TV show or online, or read about it, right? So all of those things are an experience of kindness. It's most, when you're interacting with another person and you're experiencing kindness, that's when you're first person involved with it. But can you think of an experience of kindness that you've had recently? Okay, do you have it in your mind? Let me know by nodding your head or raising your hand that you've got something in your mind. I'm not going to call on you. I promise not to call on you, but just let me know if you've got something. Okay, I've got some nodding. Okay, so you've got that in your mind. Now my next question for you is, how did you know that it was kindness? How did you know that it was kindness? Is anybody willing to say how they knew something was kindness? Sure.
I'll go first. I'm the teacher. I gotta be the example. So recently I was doing something that I sell toys, and so on the weekend I sold toys, and I had people volunteer to help me do things that they knew would be beneficial to me both mentally and physically. And so because it wasn't something that they maybe wanted to do or that they had to do, they did it because they knew it was going to help me, and that's the only reason they did it.
How did you know it was kindness?
Because it was something that made me, I felt that it was a kind thing for them to do. It lifted my spirits and it lifted theirs also because they knew that they had helped me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing. So did you get that? One of the important things to understand about kindness is it's something that you can feel. Can you feel kindness when it happens? Yeah, you can actually, your senses as a human being can sense when something is kind or not. So this is really something important to think about. And really, who gets to decide if a behavior or something somebody says is kind or not? The person who's giving the kindness or the person who's receiving the kindness? Who ultimately gets to decide if it was kind? The receiver, right? I mean, you can, and we're going to talk about this, you can, as a giver, you can say, I hope this is kind, but really the receiver is the person that gets to feel that, whether it was kind or not, right? So, and it's something that we feel. We can also, in our brains, think that it's also kind, but we often have a feeling. And often, kindness feels like safety. Kindness feels like, when there's a lot of kindness around, it feels like, this is a place I feel safe. And what do I mean by safe? Physically safe, sure, nobody's going to hurt me here, but also emotionally safe. I feel like, like I can be myself. I feel like I can ask a question if I want to, right? So that feeling, when kindness is around, we feel that feeling. And now I sort of started answering the next question, which is, from the kindness, what were the outcomes? Now, this is a very science kind of word, an outcome, right? So outcome just means, like, what is the result? What happened because of something, right? So when we look at science, we say, we mix these chemicals, and this is the outcome. This is the result, right? Now, with social science, which is what I do, studying people, we say, this happened, and then this was the result of that, right? So that's an outcome. So what are some outcomes of kindness? We already said one, you feel something, you feel good. Can anyone think of any other outcomes of kindness? What happens because of kindness? I know it takes bravery to add to this conversation, but the more that we participate, the more I think that we'll all enjoy it. Does anyone have ideas? I think I said another one too, right? Safety, the feeling of safety from something. What do you think kindness does for relationships?
I think it makes like relationships stronger.
You think it makes relationships stronger? I'm going to repeat back because I think I need to for the microphone thing. You're absolutely right. Kindness makes relationships stronger. Does that seem obvious? When we think about it this way, right? But also, we maybe take for granted sometimes that our relationships depend on kindness, right? And so by becoming more aware that our relationships need kindness, we can up our game a little, right? Do more kindness for each other. And you're absolutely right. This is one of the most important outcomes of kindness, is that it strengthens our relationships. I want to share just a little story with you about a kindness. I was walking down Euclid, which, if you don't know, is near the university. It's a big street, right near Tucson High, if you know where Tucson High is. And I was walking down the street, and there was probably a 15-year-old, probably Tucson High student walking toward me. And I was thinking in my head, I study kindness, I'm practicing kindness. What does kindness look like between me and this stranger right now, right? These are kinds of things I ask myself. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to scare him or make anything awkward, right? But at the same time, kindness is about connecting. And connecting in what seems like small ways can be very powerful. So I decided just to say good morning to him, right? Because I think in a lot of times he and I would have just walked right by each other, which is fine, right? But I'm trying to practice kindness. So I came toward him and I said good morning. And he lifted his head, and I think he was surprised that I said something to him. And he said good morning back to me. And we walked on our ways. And I felt good. It was nice. It was a little connection. Well, he came running back to me, dug into his pocket, and handed me one of those handmade friendship bracelets. Right? This is like a teenage boy, and I'm a middle-aged woman, right? And it was one of those moments. I see a few of you who are willing to start letting this feel this, smiling a little bit. It was awesome. It was awesome. It made me think, what is possible when we stick our necks out a little bit, right? What is possible when we connect with each other a little more than we might be used to? Of course, only when we're in a safe place. That's always a given for kindness, right? We never want to do this sort of thing when we're not in a safe place. We have to be in a safe place in order to do this kind of stuff. But it was such a powerful interaction. I put it up here because we think these things don't make a difference. They make a difference. Who has been the experience of being a new kid at school? Have any of you had that experience? Yeah. It's uncomfortable being the new kid at school, right? What happens when you're a new kid and people say, good morning to you. Let me show you around. Come over here, sit with us at lunch. It's everything. It's everything. And we're going to talk about why. So this is another question I want you to ask, or think about at least, and we're going to talk about it. If this school, I know this is a kind school, I've had experience with this school, but what if this was the kindest school ever? Like, how would you know? What would the evidence be that this was the kindest school in the world? What do you think?
When you walk in the doors, you feel good.
When you walk in the door, you actually feel good, right? Again, we talked about that feeling good thing, maybe feeling like you just sort of feel comfortable, right? Like, these people are kind people, and so I can be myself. I can go to my class. I can learn what I need to learn. I can make mistakes. I can apologize for my mistakes. I can learn and do better, right? So you feel something. Right, great. Now, how do you know that this is a kind place? Like, what are the behaviors that you're seeing or hearing or noticing? Am I getting you to think about kindness a little bit differently than you thought about it before? It's one thing, we love kindness, right? But now we got to sort of dig down and think, what do we actually know? I know that you all do kind notes here. That's some evidence, right? So if I'm at this school and I notice that people are exchanging kind notes on paper or on the tablet, well, that's kind of cool. That's some evidence. What if people are saying hello to each other? They're greeting each other. There's some more evidence that this is a kind place. What else would you want to see or notice in this place if it was the kindest place ever? I can tell you guys are getting a little bit braver and braver to contribute. What if you were having a really bad day? What if you had having a really bad day and you got to school? If this was the kindest place ever, what would happen? What do you think? Somebody would smile at you, right? You would go, okay, this place is friendly. Somebody might even check in on you, right? They might notice that you seem a little down. They might say, hey, what's going on? Do you need to talk about it, right? So in a kind place, we are in tune with each other in these ways, and we understand what humans, that's us, right? What humans need, And that's what kindness is about. So why are we talking about this so much? Because exactly that reason, kindness is vital to us as human beings for our health and our well-being. When we say words like well-being and wellness, usually that means things like our happiness, our moods, that sort of thing, right? So we talk about our physical health, but also then our emotional health, our psychological health, our feelings of happiness, feelings of satisfaction, that sort of thing. We know that kindness is vital for that. It's a predictor of that. So this is where we get really into the social and behavioral science. Who loves science? Can you tell that I do with the big we underneath? Okay, we've got some hands. Anyone else like science? Is anybody willing to open their mind to loving social science? You willing to open your mind? Okay, excellent. Social science is fascinating. Social and behavioral science. We study humans, right? The human animal, and we study why we do what we do, some of our behaviors. which is actually fascinating. Now, do you remember in school, tell me if you remember what age we were when we learned that humans were animals. Do you remember learning that? That humans were animals? What age were we when we learned that? 10, 8, no, younger than you all, right? 6, something like that. Well, I remember learning that. I can't remember how old I was, but I was fascinated by that idea. And I think that I thought this, right? Like humans are like animals. I think this is what I was thinking. But this idea that we are a species, we are creatures, I kind of love that, right? And it actually kind of helps me understand myself as a human and other people as humans to think about us this way. Now, not to compare us to dogs, although there could be worse comparisons, right? But to understand that as creatures of a species, we have certain needs and we have certain tendencies and we have certain ways that we behave with each other. So my next question then is thinking about us as a species, getting in tune with our animal nature. How have we historically, over many thousands of years, survived? And how do we still survive? What do you think? Together. Can you say a little more about that? Can you talk a little louder? Exactly. You're right on point. Humans have to cooperate together, have to work together, to build things together. Picture us back when we were sort of hunting and gathering, right? Humans, are we the most, the largest, strongest creatures out there? No. Are we the fastest? Not even close. Can we fly? No. Right? What happens if we're all alone out in the wilderness, nobody around? We probably don't survive, right? I mean, think about back in the day, right? Out in the hunting and gathering. Humans have to work together. We get to work together, but we also need to work together, right? We take care of each other's children. Now, you can think about back in hunting and gathering, and you can think about today still, right? We take care of each other's children. We help each other find food. We build. I love your example of construction. We build structures together. We cooperate. I mean, think about human babies. Human babies are completely helpless, right? Other species of animals are born and they can actually run off, right? Human babies, how long are human babies helpless? Did somebody in the back say 27 years, something like that? Yeah. Whenever I present to adults, they always say, when I say how long are human babies helpless, they always say something like 30, 40 years. Just the point being, we really need each other. Obviously, an infant needs other humans, right? Obviously. But you all do too. I completely do. We all do. And our culture in the United States is big on independence, right? And rugged individualism and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you can do it kind of stuff and be super competitive and be number one. And I'm not telling you not to try to be number one or anything, but it's nice to acknowledge our human need to be together and to help each other out. It's not weakness. It's our species. This is how we're supposed to be, right? And therefore, there's a great amount of joy and safety and fulfillment when we do that together. When we settle in to being together and helping each other out. There's a tremendous amount of benefit. So this is Charles Darwin. Have you all learned Darwin kind of stuff yet? You have learned it? Right. So Darwin was sort of famous for the theory of evolution, right, about how humans have evolved over time. And one of the things people think he said, although he actually didn't say this, was this survival of the fittest. And I remember when I learned this, I thought it meant like the fittest, like the strongest, like the survival of who can bonk, the other person over the head and survive kind of thing. But that's not what fit means here. Does anyone know what fit means when we talk about survival and evolution? It means adaptable, right? Like you fit your environment. You fit your environment. So in order for humans to adapt to their environment, we have to work together. So when Darwin was talking about survival of the fittest, really he was talking about survival of the kindest. And he wrote a lot about kindness, cooperation, working together, and again, how vital these things were, not only to our physical survival, but to our well-being and our physical health as well. So this is the bottom line. This is the bottom line. We sometimes are made to think that we are weak for needing other people. It is really important that we push back on that idea. Humans need humans. Humans need humans. Humans need relationships. And there's a lot we can do to make our relationships better. There's a lot we can do to help people who are not feeling included, to make sure we're creating spaces where everyone feels included. And that's what kindness looks like. Kindness, I'll just wait for the bell to stop. That's a lot of bongs. Kindness communicates to each other that you belong here. You're included here. We're all in this together. Now, kindness doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everybody. That's just not possible, right? But it does mean that we look at every other human around us and we say, each one of us has the needs and the rights and the wants to be part of this thing, right? Whatever this thing is. In this case, we're talking about here, at your school. I threw this in there because this is a really important thing to understand about us as humans. This idea of social vigilance. Okay, I'll just read this to you and then we'll talk about it. The effortful act of monitoring the social environment for potential interpersonal challenges or threats. So what that means is that when we come into any place, we have this, I always do this, like antenna, right? You know that antennae help like read the environment? Whenever we come into a place, we are doing that, right? We come into a place, and as social beings, we're trying to figure out, is this a safe place for me or not? So when I walked in the front door this morning, did somebody smile at me? They did. Did somebody greet me and show me where to go? They did. And this is little evidence to me that I can let down my social vigilance. Okay, look at me right now. When I go like this, that's vigilant, right? When you go in somewhere and you don't know if you're safe. And again, when I say safe, I don't just mean physically safe, although that's certainly part of it. But also just, can I be myself? Are people going to be kind to me here? Can I share my opinions in this place? Can I ask a question and not feel stupid for asking a question, right? So when we are in a place that is safe and kind, our shoulders relax, we feel more relaxed, we feel like ourselves. Okay? Does everyone know this experience of social vigilance? Probably if we're honest with ourselves, we do, right? Going in anywhere that we sort of don't know. We don't know the people, or we don't know what to expect, right? We might feel that vigilance. This vigilance is stressful on our bodies, okay? You may have studied in science about the physical body, right? There's a stress hormone, there's many hormones, but that causes us to be alert and vigilant. That's what that word vigilant means. It's like, I'm on alert, right? There's those antennas. Am I safe in this space? So that is a stressful state to be in. So now we're going to talk about this science thing, right? So this is, in science, we try to figure out how things are connected, what leads to what leads to what. And this is something that we're understanding. This is one of the paths that we understand. So first, let's look at, there's the experience of kindness. And we already said that experiencing kindness improves our relationships. That's what interpersonal connection means. Interpersonal means person to person, right? Interpersonal connection is stronger when there's a lot of kindness happening. When we experience kindness, we are strengthening those bonds. Now, those bonds help us experience less stress in our body, right? When we see that kindness around us, we relax a bit. We relax. The levels of those hormones can go down. And that is healthier for us, right? Because being stressed all the time isn't healthy. So when we have a kind environment, we are more relaxed, we are less stressed, we are healthier and happier. So that gets us to this next one, which is health and well-being. And guess what? When you're feeling well and you're feeling kind of happy or you satisfied and safe, are you more inclined to do more kindness? You are. You are, right? When you're feeling unsafe or self-protective, you're not inclined to do a lot of kindness, right? Because you're having to be self-protective. So when we don't have to self-protect, when we feel safe, when we have a kind environment around us, we're more likely to do more kindness. Okay, this cycle up here is very interesting. Have you ever heard this idea of a vicious cycle? A vicious cycle is when something bad happens that causes another bad thing to happen, which causes another bad thing, and it sort of spirals into a whole lot of badness, right? This is what we call a virtuous cycle, because it's a good thing that causes a good thing that causes another good thing, which causes more of that good thing, and around and around and around we go. So what we need to do as humans, if we care about ourselves and other people, is create the conditions so that we have this virtuous cycle. I picture these wheels like rolling all over the place, right? Where we feel like we can engage in our lives in a way that is positive for us and other people. Now remember, kindness doesn't just mean being happy all the time, although happiness is great, but it also means being there for each other when we're going through hard stuff, because hard stuff's part of being a human. So this idea of kindness as a health behavior is what I study at the university. What does that mean, health behavior? Have you ever heard that terminology? Health behavior? A health behavior is just any behavior we do that is good for our health and our happiness, right? So, for example, we all know that smoking is not good for our health, right? Do we all know that? Yeah, we do. So quitting smoking is considered a health behavior. So if you want somebody to quit smoking, you think of that as a healthy behavior, quitting smoking. Then we think about what do we do in order to get somebody to quit smoking. So if kindness is healthy, which we've already talked about now, right? Did I convince you with the wheel, right? If kindness is healthy, how do we get more of that behavior? So kindness is a health behavior. We need it to be healthy. So the research I do then is asking, how do we increase kind behavior? Okay? So if kindness is great, are we convinced? Is kindness great? Well, you just give me that. No, just kidding. Kindness is good, right? Yay, kindness. We know kindness is good when we feel it. Really, by definition, kindness is good, right? Because it's something that we can feel it, makes us feel safer, makes us feel belonging, makes us want to do more kindness for other people. So if we just assume that kindness is great, which it is, we have a lot of research, is that the end of the story? It's not, unfortunately. If we had plenty of kindness all around us all the time, we wouldn't need to have this conversation. But does anyone think that there's a need for more kindness? And a little hand up if you think we need more kindness in the world. Okay, so, all right, I agreed, right? Agreed. We don't have to look very far to see that besides all of this potential we have for kindness, there's a lot of potential humans have for treating each other badly as well, which is all the more reason we need to get a little louder about kindness and get a little bit more informed so that we can be spokespeople for kindness as really how humans are supposed to interact with each other. So we definitely have a need for more kindness in schools, in businesses, in communities, in neighborhoods, in government, around the world, right? It is absolutely a need. So here's our goal. Remember, we're going to get really sciencey, because now we're going to think about how do we do this? And that's really what I'm interested in. So in the research I do, I'm not trying to prove that kindness is good for us, because we already have a ton of research that says that kindness is good for us. Okay? So what my question is, okay, then how do we do it better? Okay? If it's good for us, how do we get more of it? How do we get more of it? Don't you think that's a good question? Right? I mean, if kindness is so great, how do we do more of it? Okay, so this is the part, this is what I'm interested in the how. That's the question. How do we do this better? Knowing that besides being animals, social animals that need kindness, we also have things like, threat and competitiveness and all these other things that cause us to maybe behave unkindly. All right, now this gets a little sciencey, but I just want you to understand this idea that we as humans live in environments, right? So picture yourself in that middle flower. You're the individual. But you are an individual who is surrounded by friends and family in a neighborhood. You go to a school. Your families might go to their jobs, right? You live in a community. That community has laws and rules and policies. So when we think about trying to change something, we have to think about how we work in this system. So let's use that quitting smoking example. Suppose we want to help somebody quit smoking, and we have some great ways to help people quit smoking that are based in science. So we help that person quit smoking. Yay, they quit smoking successfully. But now they go back to their life, and maybe their family members smoke. Maybe they go to a job where people go on break and smoke. Is that person going to be able to keep not smoking? It's going to be way harder, right? Like way harder. So we are not just individuals walking around unaffected by our environments. We are highly affected by our environments. Highly affected. So if we want somebody to quit smoking, we got to make sure that we're looking at their whole family unit, we're looking at their workplace, their neighborhood, everything to help make that happen. Does that make sense? This is really important and something that we often will study individuals. Like, let's just make this individual kinder. And that's great as individuals. Hopefully we're working on ourselves. But really we got to think about how do we make these places kinder, these environments kinder, so that it opens up the individuals to be able to really practice and do better. Okay, so think about, we're going to create the kind environment that makes it possible for people to do kindness more. Because imagine if you listen to this talk and you're like, yes, I love it. Yay, kindness, right? But the culture around the school is kind of, and I'm not saying that it is, because I don't think it is, but it's kind of, not kind. And so you feel like even though you want to do kindness, you can't because the culture is not there, right? So how do we create both? That's what we're looking at. All right, so now if we want more kind behavior, we have to think about what leads up to that, because that's where we're going to focus in order to make more kind behavior happen. So if we have kind behavior over here, the most direct predictor of kind behavior, do you understand what I mean by predictor? What is something that predicts whether something else is going to happen, right? The most direct prediction is somebody's intention. So if I ask you, do you intend to say hello to people in the hallway? And you say, yes, I intend to do that. That's a good predictor that you will actually do that, right? Okay, that might seem obvious too. But if somebody says, I intend to quit smoking, I want to quit smoking, I commit to quitting smoking, that's a good predictor that they will. But it's not enough, is it? There has to be something else. Because what can get in the way? Suppose you all leave this talk saying, yeah, I want to do more kindness. Does that mean you automatically will? What could get in the way of you doing kindness? What could be some of the barriers to you doing kindness? Can you speak a little louder? You said something. Go ahead. Oh, you're not raising your hand. Okay, well, here are some barriers. Tell me if you think some of these are fine. You might think, yeah, I want to do more kindness, and then you might get out there and you might feel like too shy, right? Or maybe even a little insecure. Or maybe you would think somebody would think it was awkward if you said hello, right? Are those some barriers? Are those reasonable? Okay. Also, we can actually do something that we think is kind but is not received as kind. Remember before how we talked about if there's a giver of kindness and a receiver of kindness, that there can be different perceptions of the kindness between the two people. So we're going to explore that a little bit here. This idea of intention, like I want to do kindness, I intend to do kindness, I am committed to doing kindness, and then actually what happens, right? What is the outcome? What is the impact? Has anyone ever heard of the golden rule? What's the golden rule? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Were you going to say the same thing? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Okay? Most people, we love the golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. But the platinum rule is just a little tweak to that. Does anyone know what the platinum rule is? Go ahead, loudly, please.
Only because I've been to another Ben's Bells presentation. The platinum rule is not treating people the way you want to be treated, it's treating them the way they want to be treated.
That is exactly what it is. Isn't that an amazing little tweak? Right? So treat others the way you want to be treated means you just need to know what you like, right? Or what you want. But the platinum rule is going to challenge us to think about what other people need and want. That's different, isn't it? That's different, right? Suppose you are, who can I pick on? I won't make you talk, I promise. Who can I pick on? I can pick on you? Okay, great. Suppose we're best friends, right? You're a big introvert, and I'm a big extrovert, okay? But I'm throwing you a birthday party, okay? The golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. Do you all know what extrovert means? Extrovert is a personality type that is really energized by other people. So if I want to do the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, how do I, as an extrovert, want my birthday party? Lots of people, maybe kind of loud, like, right? But how does an introvert want their birthday party? An introvert gets a little more exhausted by large groups of people and that sort of thing, potentially. So how, as an introvert, how would you want your birthday party?
Probably like calm, quiet, not a lot of people.
Maybe fewer, like some close friends, right? Maybe a little bit more mellow. I mean, maybe you want to, get a little loud too, but probably with fewer people, right? Now, the golden rule, I would throw for my friend, the introvert, I would throw a big, huge party with, hundreds of people and lots of speeches. And you would get to do a speech. Would that be kind? No, right? The platinum rule, treat others the way they want to be treated. So the kindness would look like me saying, what does my friend need? It might be different from what I need. And then I would throw that party in a way that my friend would want it. Does that make sense? This is a switch, a little switch in our head. We have to start being able to understand other people better. Thank you for participating. In this next picture, this is a picture of me with my son, Matthew. In this picture, he was 17 years old, and I was practicing the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, but I was failing miserably at the platinum rule. See what you think. How happy does my son look in this picture? Not happy, right? So he went to Tucson High. He was on cross country. He had just finished his race. It was probably 105 degrees outside, right? So I'm at the finish line, cheering him on. Way to go, Matt. And then I golden rule it over to him for a hug and a photograph, right? Isn't that what everybody wants after they finish a race? No. What does he want? He wants to cool down. He wants some water. He wants to hang out with his teammates. He does not want his mother there, right? So this is a lighthearted example of me practicing the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, but not the platinum rule. What I'm getting at is that kindness requires us to think about other people's needs and wants and to consider that they may be different than our own. This is what makes kindness challenging, but also amazing, because it gets us really in tune with each other, right? It makes us think about maybe something is happening that is different than what I'm seeing right now. So if we have kind intention, like I feel kind, I want to do a kindness, and then we do a kind behavior, there will be a positive outcome. Again, by definition, kindness is good. But here's the thing about kindness that makes us need to think twice or even 3 or 4 times, is that we can have kind intention, meaning good intention, right? I really do want to help, or I really do want to celebrate somebody, or I really do want to do something for somebody. But if I do it in a way that is not well thought out, I might actually end up hurting. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. I told you all that my son died, and there was so much kindness around me. And I also experienced when people were kind of didn't know what to say and would say something that actually didn't feel super kind. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes people would say things like, at least you have another son. Some of you just made faces, right? But it was actually kind of common, and it doesn't surprise me now because we don't get taught this stuff, right? Nobody teaches us how to support people who are grieving. But the good news is these are things we can learn. But the point for this example is the person who said that to me, the many people who said things like that, and I'm sure I said things like that before I learned too, intended kindness, right? They intended kindness. They said something. It actually didn't feel kind to me, and therefore it did not have a positive outcome. So we can have a little bit of a trickier thing here with kindness that we have to think about. All right. And so between intention, we want to do the behavior, and actually doing a kind behavior, something important we have to have is a skill. We have to have a skill. So if the kindness that we're doing is holding open a door for somebody, that doesn't require great skill, does it? No. We have to be able to open the door, right? But if the kindness is helping somebody who's grieving, or saying something to console somebody who's grieving, that does require some skill. So this idea that skills are important in kindness is something we need to think about, and think about what kind of skills. So I have another sort of lighthearted example here. All right, so imagine you're the guy standing on the wall, and you're having knives thrown at you. Do you hope that that knife thrower has the intention not to hit you with a knife, or the actual skills not to hit you with a knife? The skills, right? So the intention is great, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Have you ever heard the phrase, it's the thought that counts? And that's true. The thought means intention, right? The thought is important, but it's not all that's important. The thought is important, and being able to have the skills to do whatever we're going to do, to say what we're going to say, is also important if we want the kindness to land as kindness. All right, in addition to skills, we have to have that environment around us. Remember, we talked about that already. We have to be in a place that allows us the time to do a kindness, maybe, that allows us the opportunity to learn the skills we need to do, that allows us the culture and climate to do it. So again, imagine this knife thrower works for a knife throwing company that overworks them, makes them work way too long hours, and she does not get enough sleep. Do you want that knife thrower throwing knives at you? No. Again, this is a silly example, but hopefully the point is getting across that beyond just the skills, so maybe she has super good skills, but she's sleep deprived. Maybe she's stressed out because she's not getting paid enough at her job, right? Maybe her boss is really unkind. That stress, that overwork, that lack of sleep will affect her ability to do the behavior that she's trying to do. Again, are you getting me, what I'm saying about kindness, right? If we don't get the sleep we need, if we don't get the breakfast we need, if we're not surrounded by an environment that encourages us to do kindness and provides us what we need in order to do kindness, then we're probably not going to be able to do kindness. So those are super important things that let us know, that help us get from that intention to actually doing kindness. Okay, so we're going to have to wrap it up fairly soon, so I won't be able to get deeply down into this. But there's a theory that I use in my research. You don't need to know it, but it's a very well-tested theory. So a theory is a model. It becomes a model because it's been tested so many times, right? So it's not just a hypothesis like, I have this idea that this is how the world works, and that's how it is. but rather it's a hypothesis that's then been tested and tested and tested and tested and tested and tested and tested in a whole lot of situations, right? Then it can become a theory that people say, yeah, you can actually turn to this idea and sort of follow what it says and it makes sense. Are you with me on what a theory is? Okay, so this theory that I use in the work I do is called reason-action theory. And we've already talked about this part of the model, right? We've already talked about it. So there's other things that will let us know whether we're going to do a behavior or not. And that is, how do we feel about doing the behavior? Will it be good for us or bad for us? The next one is, what are other people doing? People who I think are important. Are they doing it? Yes or no? That's going to affect whether I do it. And then finally, do I think I can? Let's use the quitting smoking example again, right? If I want to quit smoking and my attitude is, yes, it would be good for me to quit smoking. Yes, thumbs up on that one, right? On the norms part, yeah, my friends have quit smoking. My family has quit smoking. Everybody wants me to quit smoking. Another thumbs up, right? We're good. 2 out of 3 so far. Now on the last one, do I think I can do it? I don't think I can do it. It's too hard, right? Am I going to try to quit smoking? No, I'm not going to try to quit smoking. Okay, so these 3 questions are really important to ask ourselves and each other about creating a culture where we can practice kindness. Do I feel good about doing kindness? Do I think people will think it's awesome, or do I think people will think I'm weak, right? Are other people who are important doing the behavior? Yes or no, right? Now, in a place like this, what grades do we have here? 6, 7, 8, right? 8th graders have a lot of opportunity to model behavior for younger students. A lot, right? We tend to look up to older students. And so when the older students, and when you get to high school, if the seniors are showing that this is a kind place, it's cool to be kind, we do kindness, we take it seriously around here. If you go in as a freshman, you're much more likely to go, awesome, right? Because you're coming in and you're looking to other people. This is, again, remember, we're social creatures, so it makes it a lot easier for us. And then, can we do it? If we think we can't do it, we tend to not do it, right? So that's how we get, that's how we're studying this behavior. And then the beliefs we have about this is what makes up those norms. So the questions that we ask then, first, we start with what behaviors are we talking about? And that's where I want to sort of jump to right now, and we'll finish up there with the results of the research I've done so far. These are the categories of kind behaviors that are showing up so far. And let me let you know how we do this. So this research specifically was done in 2 hospitals. Different than schools, right? But still, groups of humans working together, trying to get stuff done in a high stress environment. So what we said was, imagine this is the kindest hospital ever. How would you know? What would you see? What would you hear? What would you notice about this place? We collect all those behaviors, and then we ask them to group those behaviors into types. So when you're thinking about how you can be kinder in your life, these are some things to think about. Okay, the first one, friendly behaviors, are those behaviors that you might just are sort of short, that you might do with strangers even, right? Holding open a door, saying hello. If your parent, is driving and they wave somebody in a car in front of them, smiling at somebody, moving, stepping aside on a sidewalk, that sort of thing. Friendly behaviors. Okay, again, they are super simple. They don't take much time. They communicate a lot. They communicate, we're in this together, I see you. They communicate inclusion. Communication effort is when we actually show that we're trying to understand somebody. Think about that. When you show that you're trying to understand somebody, that communicates kindness to them. When you say, I want to make sure I understand you, or when you ask them a question, or when you repeat back what they say, right? You're showing that you're trying to understand. That communicates kindness. Inclusive and fair behaviors. Behaviors that show that everyone's included. When you invite somebody to eat lunch at your table, when you show a new student around, fair behaviors, when you make sure people are experiencing fairness, those behaviors communicate kindness as well. Helping behaviors, right? That's when we actually help each other with something. Like I could help you carry a big stack of books or something, or if you drop your books, I could help you pick them up. Those are helping behaviors. Social support behaviors are those behaviors that are more about emotional support, right? Like checking in, how are you doing? Are you okay? I heard about what happened. I want to make sure you're okay. Listening, that sort of thing. And then finally, this is interesting that when we're in an environment where there's a lot of learning and coaching and going on, that communicates kindness as well. That's pretty easy in a school, right? Because we're here to learn. But out in the world too, in that hospital, that was a big deal when people would teach each other things, learn from each other, admit when they didn't know something, learn from their mistakes, that sort of thing. That really communicated kindness as well. So the goal is we get this virtuous cycle going. We get this virtuous cycle going. And the more we do, the safer that we all feel, the more the environment becomes, the conditions are right for kindness, right? So right now, if people are sitting back and feeling a little not sure about it, and you feel okay about it, by you putting your neck out and trying to up your own kind behaviors, hopefully you'll be helping to create the conditions for other people to do the same thing. Do you understand how this is not an individual by individual by individual thing? Yes, individuals are important. You can yourself increase your kind behaviors. You can walk out those doors and say hello to somebody who you don't know. You could hold open a door. You could help your teacher. You could do that. So you absolutely can increase your own kind behaviors. But in doing so, you are doing something to the whole environment that is really, really important. And that's why this is really interesting to study from a community lens. We're doing this in healthcare all over Tucson. They're calling it Kindness is Good Medicine. We're really looking at how do we do this better? How do we increase kindness in our healthcare, in our hospitals, in our clinics, in our doctor's offices, all over the place. All right, so we'll wrap it up there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Adults, you can also chime in if you'd like. I used to be a teacher, so I have really long wait time. Do you know what wait time is? Wait time is when a teacher asks a question and then doesn't say anything for a long time until you finally will say something. I can't. I'm a little hard of hearing. Can you come forward and speak really loudly? Come all the way up.
It's okay, Wayne, you can do it. Why'd you stop working for what?
Ben's Bells? That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. So the question was, why did I stop working for Ben's Bells? So before I started Ben's Bells, I was a social scientist already. Okay, but back then I studied linguistics, which is language. How do we use language with each other? You just made a face at me. Linguistics is about language and how we communicate with each other, right? And so after Ben died and Ben's Bells was rolling, I was using a lot of my background in the work. But then as Ben's Bells grew and grew and grew, I became the person in charge of running Ben's Bells, which is different than doing the social science. Does that make sense? So as Ben's Bells grew, I became in charge of the staff and the board of directors and raising the money and paying the bills and doing all of those things. And I'm a scientist who wants to study stuff and study people. So I needed to step down from that position so that I could get back into where my passion is. And so now I turned it over to this wonderful team at Ben's Bells who are doing a great job running it. And I still work with Ben's Bells by doing stuff like this. That's a great question. Thanks for asking me. Any other questions? Does anybody want to be a social scientist? Okay, there are a few people who are giving me little nods. We're going to create the conditions at the school where you can proudly admit you want to be a social scientist. But thinking about human behavior is interesting, right? And thinking about yourself and your own behavior as human is interesting. Like I have a lot more kindness toward myself now that I've thought of myself in these terms, right? Like as a human being trying to do my best. So thank you all so much for coming and paying attention and being part of this effort to try to make Tucson the kindest city ever. I hope you'll think about what your role in that is and then how you can work together with your classmates, your entire school to create the most kind school ever. Thank you so much. Oh, this is just to remind you that the word kin, like family, is in kind, right? Kin, we need each other, work together. Have a great day. See you all. I think Liz has some kind